SBC Media.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
Avid listeners to the iGaming Daily podcast will know that during the run-up to the festive period, I was pleading for a Christmas miracle. And it was a miracle that looked to be just that. Yet on the 21st of December, the Chamber of Deputies provided the gambling sector an early Christmas present, approving regulation which witnessed the reintegration of online games, which the Senate wanted to exclude as part of over 100 amendments. Then, to round off the new year in style, President Lula sanctioned the bill that will now see regulation of sports betting and iGaming in Latin America's biggest country. And this will be the topic on today's episode of iGaming Daily, appropriately sponsored by SVC Summit Rio, where I'm joined once again to talk all things Brazil with Isadora Marcante, the business journalist at SBC Noticias Brazil, and the long-awaited return of Lucía Mouriño, SBC's VP of Relationships LATAM. How are you both doing today? Lou, welcome back. We have missed you on this podcast.
Thank you. I missed you guys.
Yeah. How's your new role going?
It's great. Like, there's less than 2 months to go to SBC Summit Rio, so it's kind of like insane right now, but in a very good way.
Yeah, and obviously this news has just kind of amplified that sixfold. I mean, it was busy anyway, but just this news that peaked at the end of the year and is now rolling on to this year, it's insane. And Isa, how have you been?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm very good. I've missed you, Lou, as well.
No, she's just saying that.
Yeah, it's just so good that you're here.
Thank you, guys.
Cool. Okay, we've done enough sucking up to Lucía now. So,
we can keep going.
that's the first half of this podcast.
Yeah.
No, so that is not the first half of this podcast. So the first half of the podcast, we're going to be a bit more reflective on the process that took place within 2023 when the provisional measures were first announced up until this point, and what we now know following Lula's sign-off. And then after a quick ad break, in the second half of the podcast, we'll be a bit more forward-thinking on what we think the next steps will be and how the inclusion of online games has impacted the prospect of the market. And we're also going to trial, I don't know if this is going to work well or not, but in the UK we have a quiz show called Tenable. So we're going to trial a little Tenable quiz show inspired section for the listeners at home, which me, Lou, and Isadora will do, but more on that later on this show. But first, Isa, we're going to come to you. You are our Brazil expert. Can you just provide us with a summary of kind of everything that's happened? I know we've done many podcasts on this in the past, but just for the listeners now, there's a lot that's happened since the provisional measures were introduced, and I think it was March of last year up until this point. Can you just give us an overview or a summary of the steps that have taken place?
Yeah, sure. So last year was a busy year actually for the Minister of Finance and the federal government. We started the year with a provisional measure, and then we ended up with a bill that turned into law. So the provisional measure before just was just talking about regulating sports betting in Brazil. And then in September, we had the Chamber of Deputies launching a bill that included not only sports betting regulation, but also online games regulation. And of course, when a bill is drafted in the Chamber of Deputies in Brazil, it goes to the Senate for approval as well. And it was approved with over 100 amendments. And the Senate also excluded iGaming from the text. So since the bill was drafted by the Chamber of Deputies, the bill went back to the Chamber of Deputies for a final vote, and they approved the regulation with the preserving the agreed taxation regulations that they changed in the middle of this process, and they reintegrated online casinos or online games, as they say, to the text. And then in December, the 30th of December, Lula approved the bill and turned into law, including that he kept online games in the text, but he rejected some other he I think was like 3 vetoes that he had. Yeah, he did on the bill, and yeah, now we have a regulated market in Brazil.
Yeah, Lula is the hero of online games at the moment.
And
But
match fixing. Shout out to match fixing because, like, even though the sports betting world, like, legal sports betting world started in 2018 when it was like legalized and the whole regulation process started, it was like it all really started when a few cases of match fixing came to light early in 2023. Like initially, we all thought that they were isolated issues, but then an investigation showed that there was a much bigger scheme going on, and basically ended up in the CPI that helped move things along. So, like in the worst possible way, shout out to match fixing.
oh, that taken out of context would be hilarious. I'm not gonna
Yes.
lie. But Lula the hero. We'll just say that in general. But we mentioned it. Online games are in, and I'm specifically. I know Lou, you already said online casino. I'm specifically calling it online games because that's what it said in the text. And just from my understanding, because this is kind of a grey area for me, like online games aren't or weren't legal in Brazil, but they weren't illegal in Brazil. But Lou, I'll come to you on this one, and so you can also chime in as well. Is online games now because they're getting regulated? Are they legal now moving forward, or will they be working on creating this legalized platform and then regulating at the same time? I'm just a bit confused on where this stands, so if I can just get some clarity.
Yeah, no, it's legal. It's been signed into law, and once the market gets the green light from the authorities, then operators will be able to offer online casino as well. And I say online casino, but it's online gaming in general. It's just that because I'm trying to differentiate between online sports betting, which was already contemplated, and online casino games, online, I guess, online bingo as well. You know what I mean. Yep.
I think the text did read that it was RNG games, so you can confirm that because I think you the one who mentioned it to me. That it did
Yeah,
state it was RNG games, so they would be online casino games. But I just don't know if
exactly.
there's a reason they're referencing online games and not online casino.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, the path was a bit different because sports betting actually went through a process to legalize it back in 2018, like I said, and had to go through several processes throughout the past 5 years to be able to get to this point. Whereas you could argue that online casinos skip multiple steps. I like to highlight as well that the industry never really moved from its stance around online casinos. It always believed that they needed to include it, and not just because regulating half of it equals not regulating at all, but also because there's room to work on provisions to protect players, I don't know, make a safer environment for everyone, and ultimately contribute higher taxes to the government, which is the ultimate goal, right? Both from an operational perspective and from a player perspective, I believe.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on, Issa. Go on.
No, you can say it.
No, I was going to move on because Lucia mentioned tax, but if you want to mention something before we move on to that, that's fine.
No, I agree with you, and that's it. Like they don't mention online casinos in the law, but like they added the definition of online games, which are like games that you can find at an online casino. So yeah, no, what Luke said, it's completely accurate. They regulate it, so once they regulate it, it's already legal. We just have like to know exactly what's going to happen, because I've seen some specialists, and I'm not gonna name them, but I've seen some of them mentioning that okay, like we have specific games that are contemplated in the law, but they're not all online casino games. But if online casino games are based on RNG, then it's all of them that are contemplated as well. So we just have to wait what's going to happen to see like the portarias that will come out as well. But yeah, basically that's it. Like it's legal now, 100%.
Cool. And
We actually had a conversation about this, I think not a couple of weeks ago, but maybe a couple of months ago. And I asked Isa, like, how can you regulate something that's not legal? And it was because it didn't say that it was illegal.
Exactly.
So there was like a gray area that obviously the Brazilian representatives took advantage of. Like, if it's not illegal, then like we can regulate it. If it specifically said that it was illegal, then that was another issue. But because it didn't say anything, they could take advantage of that.
That's the main problem in Brazil.
I'm going to move on to sorry. Isa, I'm going to move on to tax. I'm going to move on to tax. It's everyone's favorite topic. I'm sorry. So, it's a bit of important information because it's not just tax for the operators; it's also for the consumer end of this as well. So, Isa, I will come to you on this one. Can you just give us some highlights of some key figures of what the tax fees are for operators, GGR, and the tax revenue for consumers as well?
Okay, so previously, before Lula signing the law, we have like 12% on the GR, which was reduced. It was reduced. It was before 18%, and then they lowered it down to 12% on GGR, and it was 30% on tax for consumers, and now it's 15%. But we had the tax exemption included in this topic on the bill that says that the players who win like up to 2,112 BRL would not need to pay taxes. And now with the law signed by Lula, we have like all the players paying 15% on the net price for any amount of winnings. So we don't have the tax exemption anymore. That's very important to mention to the listeners.
Mm-hmm. And what about the licensing fees? Because that's a big one for the operators. Are people looking into the market?
Well, the licensing fee is still like 30 million BRL for a 5-year license. So yeah, they capped the same amount that the Minister of Finance when they published the provisional measure. They capped the same amount, 30 million.
Perfect.
But 5 years, not 3. 5 years.
5 years, not 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm just
by
going
the
to
way,
go over...
that's roughly $6 million dollars. So
Yes.
if it's a 5-year license, you could argue that that's 1 point something million for like every year that you're operating in Brazil.
Yeah.
Cool. Just to round off this first half of the show, I'm just going to go over a few key provisions in the regulation, and Lou and Isa, you can jump in if there's anything that I have missed. So it says that all licensed sports books must maintain a physical presence in Brazil. Authorized operators must have a Brazilian partner as a board member holding at least 20% of the corporate capital in the country. Unlicensed operators will be banned from advertising in Brazil. Licensed operators will be obligated to implement identification technology to verify bettors' identities, which I think is a really important point for safety for the players. And inspection fees will be progressive tax based on operators' net revenue. Is there anything we've missed there, or is that kind of the key takeaways?
I think these are the key takeaways, yes. Of course, like the specific rules for every department within the industry will be later on published by the Minister of Finance. But these are the key provisions in the legislation that it was already written in the provisional measure as well. So yeah, those are the most important things I think that our listeners should know.
Perfect. Cool. Right, we'll wrap up the first half of the show. We'll go to a quick ad break, and then when we return, again, we'll be a bit forward thinking, looking at the next steps, and the new projections. Now we now know sports betting and online games are included. So be right back.
Brazil, a global economic powerhouse, deeply passionate about sports, and now home to one of the hottest markets in gaming. And we're giving it the full SBC treatment. Join industry leaders, market experts, and all the major players in the country for 3 days of content, exhibition, and epic networking at the first ever SBC Summit Rio.
And welcome back to the second half of iGaming Daily. We're talking all things Brazil. We're looking forward now. So, Isa and Lou, I'm going to ask a really vague question. We don't really know the answers because we're still waiting for the porterias to come out to give us a bit more in-depth knowledge on this. But what do you think the next steps are now moving forward? And Isa, we'll go to you first.
Well, I believe that the portarias will be the next step that they will do now that the market is regulated. The portarias are really important because they will set the rules for the players. And the players, I mean like the operators and the software providers and everyone involved in offering this kind of entertainment to the audience. So
who provides the porterias? Who publishes them?
The Minister of Finance.
The Minister of Finance, okay.
Yes,
and is that in like consultation with different departments and sectors within the gambling sector?
Yes, they launched the first one already last year. It was December, if I'm not mistaken. It was in December they launched the first portaria, setting the general rules for operators, and that's what we mentioned earlier in the first half of this podcast, like the license and the operators that don't have a license will be banned from the sports betting market in Brazil, and the advertising rules. So this is just the general rules. And now the Minister of Finance will publish the other portarias for each department, each sector of the industry. So we'll have a portaria for the advertising, we'll have a portaria for the payment methods, we'll have a portaria for the responsible gambling, for the privacy policies and everything. So we just took the first step. We still need to take at least another 9 or 10 because we'll have 9 or 10 portarias, something like that. That's what Mansour mentioned last year in an interview that we did with him on SBC Notícias Brasil. So yeah, right now I believe that they will focus on the portarias, but we never know. Brazil is quite of I don't know, sometimes I feel like we're in a Pandora box that everything can happen. So yeah, if we open it, we don't know what's going to come out. So yeah, but I believe the most logical step right now is to focus on the portarias.
Mm-hmm. And Lou, what about you? What do you think?
That's a good question. Well, if you had asked me the same question last year, I would have told you, and I think I did. I expect the industry to be regulated by the end of 2023, and we're in the second week of January 2024, and I think we will see an operational market within the next few months. Even though there's a lot of steps to take, still, it will happen. I think we will see some of the projections with our own eyes this year.
Yeah, Lou's already got precedence. She just said there that she got the regulated market correct by the end of 2023. So if anyone's a betting person, follow Lou's tips.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't believe that. When you asked me this last year, I was like, I don't think we're going to see this until the end of 2023, but we did. Yeah.
Cool. And again, we've mentioned online games and their inclusion, and it from my point of view, it didn't look like it was going to happen, and there was quite a lot of protests for it to be included. There was a lot of people for it as well, but it was always kind of the unknown if it was going to be included or not, or the big talking point. It is. How does that change the projection of kind of the reputation or the expectation of the Brazilian market, and how operators and even suppliers from outside are looking to enter with it being included?
Yeah, because with online casinos, I think we can expect even more. But just going back to some of the things that will shape the Brazilian market, the operators will be able to operate up to 3 brands at a national level. So based on the 134 companies that we know are interested in operating there, and taking into account that there's not a limit, we could see at least 400 different brands in the next few months.
In the next few months?
Well, yeah, because you have 134 companies that have already confirmed that they're interested in operating there. And, well, I mean, we all know that some of them are already operational. So if every single company there gets a license, obviously this is just a scenario, right? But it could happen. You have the possibility of this becoming a reality. If that happens and these companies get 3 operating brands each, then that it's basically 400 different brands.
Oh, wow. That kind of taking me back a bit. Now you've explained it, I understand why, but when you first said it, I was like, 400 in a few months?
Yeah, because I think like at an international level, people still don't realize the potential that this market has. And not just because of the number of people who live in Brazil, or like, you know, the revenue estimations that we've got in the past few years, but like, we're also not mentioning the fact that Brazilians live and breathe football. Like, yeah, it could be like, yeah, they love football, yeah, but like, they do. Like, you meet a Brazilian and the second thing that they usually ask you is, what's your football team? Like, I'm not exaggerating. Brazilians love sports betting and they love online casino. So the interest, the local interest, it's insane compared to other countries. So I would not put it past anyone to see Brazil in the like top 3 countries when it comes to gambling in the next few months. I would not be surprised if that's the case, like by this time next year.
Mm-hmm. So,
no, I agree 100%. It's just like it's insane here how we love betting and we love sports, and if we combine both, you have, like, I don't know, it's a boom. And they were predicting when the provisional measure was published, if I'm not mistaken, was around that time. They predict a revenue of 12 million BRL with sports betting. So with online casinos, which represent a huge part of the revenue of the company, of the operators and the websites that offer this kind of entertainment, is just like it's going to be huge. I believe that the revenue, the tax collection, and like the revenue that the federal government will have by regulating this market is going to be enormous. It's really hard to predict, but if we can like take like to start with like 12 million BRL only for sports betting, so we can imagine maybe at least double of it, I believe, with the online games now included in the law.
perfect. Okay, we are coming close to the end of the podcast, and I did promise we're going to trial this Tenable quiz. I'm aware, I think this is just a UK quiz show, so I'll give a brief example of, well, a brief description of the rules. So the idea behind it is you have 10 slots, 3 lives, and you have to guess. You get one question, and you have to guess the answers, the 10 answers within that one question in 3 lives. Now, we're not going to say we're going to do Tenable, because there might be a legal thing there, but we're going to look at the proposed state revenue distribution by the sector and what they are. And there's only 7 anyway, so we're going to call it Sevenable. So I'll ask each of you, I'll ask you one by one, a certain sector that's going to be receiving some state revenue. You get it right, and then I'll also tell you what the percentage is, and we'll move forward that way. People listening at home, you can play along. You can guess it yourself and give yourself bonus points if you get the percentage correct as well. So, Issa, you're a Brazil expert. I'm going to come to you first. Can you name me a sector or a proposed state revenue distribution by sector? Give me one sector.
Can you say it again, please?
Yeah, no worries. Can you give me one sector that's going to be receiving revenue distribution from taxes from the gambling sector?
Yes. So I'm not going to start with the obvious one. So I'll say tourism. Tourism
is a 7able answer. Yeah, that's how they say it as well. It's 7able answer, 10able answer. It's correct. Yeah, they'll. Do you know the percentage? Do you want me to tell you?
Yes, 28%.
Yeah, bang on. Yeah, 28%. They'll be receiving 28% revenue share. Cool. Luke, we'll come to you. Do you know a sector? Education. Yes. Do you know the percentage?
10%.
Oh wow!
That was like
this is not a hard quiz, is it? Okay. I'll spice it up a little bit. Issa, there's one more 10% in here for a sector that's receiving 10% revenue share. Do you know what it is?
Yes, Social Security.
That is a 7able answer. This isn't hard. Okay, somebody... Oh, that'll be a really easy one. Okay, what's the smallest percentage?
0.4.
That is an incorrect answer.
What?
That is incorrect. The smallest one is 1%, and it will be assigned to the Ministry of Health for measures to prevent social harm arising from gaming, which I
That's
believe...
incorrect. It's 0.4.
No,
And that's
1.4%.
industrial development, James.
That's what?
Industrial development.
So, from the facts I've got here, 1.4%
Your
will be
facts are
assigned
wrong.
for civil society and federal entities. I'm the quizmaster, so we'll say mine's right.
Isa, back me up.
Oh, no, it's just like no. We have like what happens is now we are here we're talking about sectors in general, but we have smallest percentage within each sector. So like we'll have like, for instance, 1% to the Minister of Health, which is the lowest percentage within the sectors. But for instance, inside the civil society sector, we'll have the smallest percentage because they are like, how do you call it? Like they are distributed within smaller sectors within the main sector. I don't know if I'm clear.
Yeah,
Okay.
just to summarize what Isa said, I'm right.
For argument's sake, and because I've missed you,
Both are
Lou,
right.
I'll just agree with you on this one. Right, let's round it off. The biggest allocation goes to sports at 36%. That was our attempt at 7able. It really didn't go that well, but we gave some facts. We had a...
No, you both were right.
A little argument. Lou pulled rank. No, perfect. Lou, thank you for joining us on today's episode of iGaming Daily. I've missed having you both on together. It's been good fun. Hopefully we continue to do it more. Lou, stop being a stranger to iGaming Daily. Come back more.
I will.
Cool. Apart from that, any of the topics that we've discussed in today's episode, I'll leave links to some articles in the description below for listeners to go and check out. But apart from that, you will hear me on the next episode of iGaming Daily. Goodbye.
SVC Media.